Once upon a time, in a secluded village nestled between lush forests and winding rivers, there lived a man named Odissa. He was known throughout the land for his charm, his wealth, and his mysterious allure that no one could quite explain. Tall, dark, and handsome, women swooned in his presence, and men envied his magnetism. But there was one secret that Odissa held tightly, a secret so deeply buried that not even his closest friends or the women he charmed knew the truth. Beneath his irresistible exterior, Odissa bore a curse that had been cast upon him many years ago. His manhood was not that of a normal man. Instead, it was the form of a serpent, a creature entwined with dark magic that had been passed down through his bloodline. In his youth, Odysseus' father, a powerful sorcerer, had angered the gods. In retaliation, they cursed his family, ensuring that every male heir would bear this serpent mark. The curse was meant to humiliate, to isolate, and to cause suffering. Odysseus' father had warned him never to fall in love, for the day his secret was revealed would bring tragedy. But Odissa, despite the curse, lived a life full of pleasure. Women fell into his arms, and he indulged in their affections, always careful never to stay with one long enough for them to discover the truth. Yet, as time went on, the loneliness began to creep in. He yearned for connection, but his fear of the curse kept him distant. One day, a woman named Rennie arrived in the village. Unlike the others, Rennie was not enchanted by Odysseus' charm. She was strong-willed, intelligent, and carried an air of mystery herself. Odissa was intrigued by her indifference, and for the first time he found himself wanting more than just a fleeting romance. Rennie was unlike anyone he had ever known, and he found himself drawn to her in ways he had never been before. Rennie, however, carried her own secrets. She was a descendant of an ancient lineage of priestesses who had been given the gift of sight, an ability to see beyond the physical and into the spiritual. Though she found herself strangely drawn to Odissa, she sensed something dark within him. The serpent that lay hidden was not entirely invisible to her. Their paths crossed many times, and slowly, a bond began to form. Rennie's curiosity about Odissa grew, and Odissa, for the first time, felt the weight of a secret. He wanted to tell her, but fear gnawed at him. What would happen if she knew? Would she be repulsed? Or worse, would she curse him even further? The nights they spent together were filled with laughter and a growing connection. Yet, each time their intimacy deepened, Odissa found ways to pull back, hiding the serpent from her. He was careful, always careful, but the more he fell for her, the harder it became to keep the truth at bay. One night, under the light of a full moon, Rennie decided to confront the feelings she could no longer ignore. Her intuition told her that Odissa was hiding something, and she could sense the dark energy she whispered as they lay beside the riverbank. "I know there's more to you than what you show. I can feel it. You don't have to hide from me." Odysseus' heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to confess, and paralyzed him. "Rennie," he said, his voice trembling, "there are things about me, things you might not understand." Rennie turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "I won't judge you. Whatever it is, I want to know." In that moment, Odissa felt a wave of vulnerability he had never known. He took a deep breath, knowing that if he didn't reveal the truth now, he might lose her forever. "Rennie," he began, his voice barely a whisper, "I am cursed. My manhood, it is not what you think. It's a serpent, a living, breathing snake. I've been cursed since birth, and I fear what will happen if you see it." Rennie's eyes widened, but she did not recoil. Instead, she remained silent, processing what she had just heard. She had sensed the darkness, but this revelation was beyond anything she had imagined. Yet, despite the shock, she did not turn away. "Show me," she said softly. Odissa hesitated, his hands trembling as he slowly revealed the serpent that had been hidden beneath his clothing. The snake, coiled around him, hissed softly as it was exposed to the cool night air. To Odysseus' surprise, Rennie did not scream, nor did she run. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing the serpent's scales. The snake, sensing her calm, did not strike. It remained still, its eyes locking with hers. "I have seen many things in my life," Rennie said quietly, but never this. Still, I do not fear you, Odissa. You are more than this curse. Odissa, overwhelmed with emotion, felt tears well up in his eyes. For the first time, someone had seen him fully and did not turn away. But as he looked into Rennie's eyes, he saw something else, something ancient and powerful stirring within her. "Rennie," he whispered. "Who are you?" She smiled softly, her fingers still tracing the serpent's form. "I am not just a woman, Odissa. I am a guardian of the old ways, a protector of the balance between light and dark. Your curse is not unknown to me." As the story of Odissa and Rennie unfolded, Odissa lay in awe as Rennie's words sunk into his heart. He had spent years avoiding intimacy out of fear, believing that his curse was a punishment, something to hide. But now, with Rennie by his side, he felt hope stir for the first time. "How do you know of this curse?" Odissa asked, his voice trembling with curiosity and relief. Rennie's gaze softened. "There are many things in this world that are hidden from ordinary eyes. I was trained from a young age to see the unseen, to recognize the curses and blessings that others cannot. Your curse is old, Odissa. It runs deep, but it is not without redemption." Odissa's heart raced. "Redemption? You mean it can be broken?" Rennie nodded slowly, her fingers tracing symbols in the air. "The curse that binds you was placed by an ancient sorcerer, angered by your ancestor. But curses of this nature are never absolute. There is always a way to reverse them, though it comes with great cost." Odissa's eyes filled with a glimmer of hope he had long forgotten. "What must I do?" "I will pay any price." Rennie hesitated, her gaze distant as if searching through the threads of fate. "The price is not yours alone to bear," she whispered. "It involves me as well." Odissa's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "The curse can only be broken by a union of two souls, one cursed and one blessed. I carry the blessing of my ancestors, the power to heal and to restore balance. But if I use that power to break your curse, it will bind us together forever. Our fates will become one." Odissa's heart pounded in his chest. He had longed for connection, but this was more than he had ever imagined. "You would do this for me?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Rennie smiled softly, her hand reaching for his. "I would do this for us. I see in you more than just a man cursed by fate. I see a future where we stand together, stronger than the forces that seek to tear us apart." Odissa's mind raced with the weight of her words. He had never dared to dream of a life beyond the curse. Yet here was Rennie, offering him a chance at redemption. But there was something in her eyes, an unspoken fear, a hesitation that made him pause. "What is the cost for you, Rennie?" he asked gently, knowing there was more to the story. Rennie's smile faded, and for a moment she looked away. The power to break such a curse requires sacrifice. "Once the bond is formed, I will lose my freedom. I will no longer walk between the worlds as I do now. My power will be tied to yours, and the life I've known will be no more." Odissa felt a pang of guilt. He had spent years longing for freedom, but now the price for his redemption seemed too steep. Could he truly ask Rennie to give up her life, her power for him? "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "I can't let you do that. I won't take your freedom for my sake." Rennie turned back to him, her eyes filled with both sadness and resolve. "You misunderstand, Odissa. This is not just about your curse. There is a greater darkness at play, one that has been building for generations. If we do not act, that darkness will consume everything. My sacrifice is not just for you, it is for the balance of our world." Odissa's breath caught in his throat. He had sensed the growing unease in the village, the whispers of unrest, the strange occurrences that seemed to be happening more frequently. But he had dismissed them as mere coincidence. Now, he realized there was something much larger at work. "What must we do?" he asked, his voice steady with newfound determination. Rennie stood, her form graceful and commanding against the backdrop of the night sky. "We must go to the sacred grove at the heart of the forest. There, beneath the ancient trees, the ritual can be performed. But once it begins, there is no turning back." Odissa nodded, rising to his feet beside her. "I'm ready," he said, though his heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He could not face it without Rennie by his side. The journey to the sacred grove was fraught with challenges. The forest, once familiar to Odessa, seemed to twist and turn with every step, as though the trees themselves were shifting to block their path. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness, and shadows flickered just beyond the reach of their vision. As they traveled deeper into the forest, Odessa began to feel the weight of the curse more heavily than ever before. The serpent, coiled tightly around him, seemed to grow restless, hissing softly in the still night air. His skin prickled with the sensation of being watched, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was following them. Rennie, sensing his unease, placed a hand on his arm. "The darkness knows we are coming," she said softly. "It will try to stop us, but we must remain strong." Odessa nodded, though his heart raced with every step. He had never faced such danger before, and the weight of the unknown pressed heavily upon him. Yet, with Rennie by his side, he found a strength he hadn't known he possessed. Finally, after what felt like hours of wandering through the maze-like forest, they arrived at the sacred grove. The clearing was bathed in a pale, ethereal light, and the ancient trees surrounding them seemed to hum with an energy that was both soothing and terrifying. In the center of the grove stood a massive stone altar, covered in intricate carvings that told the story of the curse and the many who had suffered before Odessa. Rennie approached the altar, her movements slow and deliberate. "This is where it must happen," she said, her voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of tension. "Once we begin, the forces of darkness will try to stop us. We must not waver." Odessa took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He had faced many challenges in his life, but none like this. The stakes were higher than they had ever been, and the fate of not just himself but the entire village, and possibly the world, hung in the balance. As Rennie began to chant in the ancient tongue of her ancestors, the air around them seemed to thicken. The ground beneath them trembled, and the trees swayed as though caught in an invisible storm. Odessa could feel the serpent within him stirring, its restlessness growing with each passing moment. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the shadows of the grove. It was a creature unlike any Odessa had ever seen. A monstrous being with glowing red eyes and a twisted, deformed body. It snarled, baring sharp teeth as it lunged toward them. Odessa's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped in front of Rennie, ready to defend her. But before he could react, Rennie raised her hand, and a burst of light shot from her palm, striking the creature and sending it crashing to the ground. "This is only the beginning," Rennie said, her voice calm but urgent. "There will be more. We must not lose focus." Odessa nodded, his muscles tense as he prepared for whatever came next. As Rennie's chanting grew louder, the energy in the grove intensified. The serpent coiled around Odessa's body began to writhe violently, and he could feel the curse tightening its grip on him. But just as the darkness seemed poised to overwhelm them, a sudden burst of light filled the grove, blinding Odessa for a moment. When his vision cleared, he saw that the creature had disappeared, and the air around them was still once more. Rennie's voice softened as she completed the final part of the ritual. "It is done," she whispered, her eyes meeting Odessa's. "The curse is broken." As the weight of the curse lifted from Odessa's body, he felt a sense of freedom he had never known. The serpent, once a living part of him, slithered away into the shadows, never to return.